crouched in doorways, muffled in whatever rags they had gathered against the cold. The growing desperation of the poor was one of the many changes that had come to pass these last 2 years. Henry had left control of the country to a nominated council until King Edward, now 11, reached his majority. The council, however, had quickly devolved power to Edward's elder uncle, Edward Seymour, now Duke of Somerset, who ruled as a virtual king. Perhaps after 60 years of firm centralized rule by Henry VII and Henry VIII, those in power could only conceive of government by a single man. After 5 years of war with France and Scotland, Henry had left the kingdom at peace when he died. It was much needed. His wars had bankrupted the country and had been paid for by the debasement of the coinage, adulterating silver with copper. These coins were no longer accepted at face value by traders, and prices were now almost double what they had been a decade ago. The effect on the poorer classes especially was catastrophic, for wages remained the same. But Protector Somerset had promptly launched a massive war against Scotland, hoping the growing number of Scottish Protestants would support him and that the marriage of the 6-year-old Mary, Queen of Scots, to King Edward would take place, uniting the kingdoms. He had built a series of forts in the new Italian style which he believed unassailable throughout the Scottish lowlands and up as far as the River Tay. But the Scotch had resisted everywhere. The forts, poorly built, had been taken one by one, while Mary herself had been sent to France, Scotland's ally, which had also provided troops. Although the war was a disaster, the Protector refused to accept defeat, and was said to be planning yet another campaign even while his soldiers in the remaining forts were deserting for lack of pay. I dropped a coin into the cap of yet another beggar shivering against a wall. The man was missing a leg, probably a veteran of the wars. The Protector made much of his claims to be a friend to the poor, and blamed the economic problems on the illegal enclosures of rural manors by landlords and the turning of tenants off their land to make way for the more profitable sheep. There had been rebellions in Hertfordshire the previous year, and remedies were promised. I walked downhill, the great spire of St. Paul's Cathedral starkly outlined against the cold blue sky. I was reminded of how, when the cathedral's great rood screen had been taken down, 2 workmen had been killed, which religious traditionalists had said was a punishment from God. For religious change, greater by far than under King Henry, was convulsing the country. Under the Protector, Protestant radicals were now firmly in charge. Images were being removed from the churches, wall paintings whitewashed. The chantries where prayers were said for the dead had been abolished, and their revenues appropriated to the Crown. And soon there would be a new prayer book in English. It was said that in it the Mass, with the belief that the priest turned the wafer and wine into the actual blood and body of Christ, would be replaced by a communion commemorating Christ's sacrifice, a view punishable by burning to death only 3 years before. I shuddered at the memory of the execution of Anne Askew at Smithfield, which I had been forced to witness. I entered Knightrider Street and arrived at Parry's chambers, kicking the snow from my boots before entering the building. To my surprise, the outer office was empty, so I went in and knocked on Parry's door. A voice called me to enter. I went in, then almost staggered back with surprise. The chair behind the broad desk was occupied not by the stout figure of Thomas Parry, but by a thin grey-haired man in black silk robes, the gold chain of the Lord Chancellor of England round his neck. Lord Richard Rich, my oldest enemy. Standing behind him I saw, with almost equal surprise, the spare, brown-bearded figure of